Alright, what's up guys? It's been a sec since my last video. I have played some tournaments. We're going to go ahead and start off with the Thad Rogers Georgia class. But before we get into that, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos. So I've played this guy a bunch. He's a good friend of mine. So I wanted to avoid playing something that we've been down a million times. So we got a Sicilian through a very interesting move order. And as you know, I will not show the beginning. Okay, so we get this kind of structure, and I want to go b5, but I'm very kind of like paranoid about these knight d5 ideas. So I go queen a5 first, and I think this is kind of what got him out of book. Now the idea is king b1, and then everything I have is kind of slow, and everything he has is faster. But he goes knight e2, and now this b5 comes really, really fast. Like b4 is a threat. The knight can never move because the a2 pawn. And I think at this point I thought black was doing really well here. So knight d4. Now there's a couple different transitions that black can go for. I'll even turn the engine on. I chose the right one, but I was also kind of tempted by this knight b4 idea and just going for a2. The reason this I think works pretty well for black is all of white's pieces are kind of in their own way. And I wouldn't say like he has active pieces and I have weaknesses, but the coordination of his pieces isn't adequate. And that's why black is just -2, and he's got these problems to deal with. Though to be fair, like this king looks weak, it's not the weakest in the world, because now these pieces are starting to coordinate. Everyone's got each other's back, and I think black has to be careful here. Though I think he's also doing fine. So the transition I went for was knight takes, and then b4. And this kind of forced him into a corner. I thought he had to go knight d5 here. If e5, I was always thinking about bishop c5 with ideas of knight h5 and getting the bishop pair. And then he's got a2. I've got the two bishops. His dark squares are weak. And I thought I was doing super well there. So I wasn't really worried about that. So he does go knight d5. But here it seemed more out of desperation, like what else, as opposed to the sacrifice is going to be too much for black to handle. So take, and then bishop c5. So when your opponent sacrifices and is trying to open you up, what you really want to do is mobilize your pieces as fast as possible, and just get caught up in development. So kind of the trade-off is white has activity, but he's down material, and if black catches up, he's just going to be up material, and he's fine. So queen e5 check, and there's this really cool defense here. If bishop e7, like during the game, I was like, okay, d6 or rook e1. So d6, I can actually just trade queens, and then here I'm completely fine. But what I was really worried about was rook e1, and now there's mate. But there's this really cool defensive kind of maneuver, castle, queen takes bishop, and just bishop b7. And now he got his piece back, but he has a lot of problems. Like rook e8 is just going to be winning a rook or the queen. Queen takes a2 is also there. And I guess there's no real easy way for him to deal with all these problems. Like for example, bishop e5, rook e8, queen d6, all forced. And then okay, the other kind of big thing in this position is this idea. If the queen moves off, then I have this line of fire. Like here b3, I think he's already kind of in trouble. Bishop c4, take. And then I guess I just take here, and now he's got to sack the piece. And it's not fun for him either. Like his king is still in a lot of trouble. But I missed this idea of castling and then going bishop b7. Because once your opponent gets with their piece back, you feel like emotionally, or like, what is this? As far as momentum goes, he kind of got it back. A computer doesn't care though, so it makes it a lot easier to give back your material. So anyway, I come up with this defense, king d8, queen g5, and here I think for a really, really long time, because there was this big problem, rook g8, bishop e5, and I didn't see a good way to defend here. Now, the computer variation and the best defense is giving back pretty much all the pawns and just getting a simple position. And like here, bishop e7, and okay, what is the count? He has 3 pawns for a piece, but my king is quote-unquote safe. The reason I didn't like this position either is it's safe, but is it really that safe? I think I have to still be careful. Now I cover all the dark squares, and here you can kind of see these are the strong squares for me, and Another reason these squares are strong is he doesn't have a dark square bishop. He only has a light square bishop. So this is where I'm going to be navigating kind of the waters. But even here, this did not seem so clear. So I came up with this move, this idea of b3. And not 100% a bluff, but the idea was if he goes c takes, I figured this position is still complex for him, and it gives him room for error. This is going to be a very big theme of this tournament, just like giving your opponent room for error or room to make mistakes. You don't have to do too much all the time. So I go b3 and he snap calls queen takes g7. Now this I also spent like 30-40 minutes on this move. I was up on time at this point, and most of the calculations are just making sure that queen takes g7 doesn't work. So if your opponent takes a really long time on a variation, don't like trust them a little bit. Like I mean, I spent time doing something. Like a lot of times you will see people make bad moves, but I think he should have calculated a little bit deeper, because once I played 98, he kind of went back in the tank, and I think he missed this idea. And the idea is, okay, let's say he takes here. All these queening and checkmates are pretty much unstoppable. Like I'm gonna win the queen or checkmate him pretty much in these positions. And bishop g5, I can go king c7, I could go f6. I saw a lot of different ideas here. I think I was just going to go with king c7. And then basically there's no way to solve this problem. He has to just keep checking. And at some point it's going to run out, and then he's going to be in trouble. So he goes bishop g5 check. I mean, I looked at f6, but this just seems simple. It's queen e5 check, d6. And you can see like all my pieces are starting to cover up, come out. And this is how you can kind of tell that white is losing the momentum. The attack fizzles out, and now black is going to have his chance. So he takes this way. I definitely think taking this way is probably a little bit better, just because his king is safer this way. And if I start going in over here, this king is still kind of suspect, so you have to be careful. But a takes, and once the king is on the run, it's not only that I'm getting my material back, but his pieces are getting uncoordinated. Like you don't want to give back the momentum that your position has, the coordination of your pieces when you're attacking. So kind of the second this happens, you can see all the pieces kind of coming in, and I have no problem with giving back some material. Take a pawn, take 2 pawns, all my pieces get out, and then your king gets weak, and I'm still at material. Like he only got a pawn for the piece. I think he's up to 2 now, 3, 4, 3, 6. Yeah, so he has 2 pawns for the piece, but all the pieces are coming back to life. So knight g7, rook e8, and I mean this looks kind of dangerous. I kind of saw this idea like almost well in advance. Like even here, if bishop f6, I had bishop c3, so I wasn't worried about it. So I was like, okay, let me just flow state, make moves, and then here it's still a tiny bit dicey. I think he could offer some slightly better resistance too. Like after queen f4, I don't know if I was gonna take here. I was definitely thinking about this. But it's not so easy for black to still finish off this position, because I mean it's just a mess, and if he gets enough pawns, then he can hold this endgame. Now queen g7, obviously I think he saw that this idea doesn't work, but I think he had some kind of hopes of holding this rook and pawn endgame, because he has a lot of pawns for it, but once again the coordination just isn't there. Black's pieces move very swiftly and efficiently. All these pawns are kind of weak, and if this rook was like here, then maybe he would have some better chances. But it takes him a long time to kind of untangle out of this position. So just some straightforward moves. Even like here, I was taking way too much time. I spent like 10 minutes on this move. I mean, it was like, do I go here? Do I go here? Do I just trade off the rook? And at some point, I was like, okay, let me just move. And then I think even here, this is not the most efficient. I can go queen a1 check, king f2, and then queen check, and he has to go back, otherwise the rook goes. And then I just get the same position up a move. But at this point, all the pawns are falling, the king is weak, coordination is not there, and I think black is just rolling in this position. So I think pretty solid start. Opening was a little suspect, but I mean I got to play Sicilian, which is fun. I think it's a fun opening and a good one to have in your arsenal, and I think the conversion was pretty smooth. So 1-0, on to the next one. Alright, so this is round 2 against Andrew Jiang. So this is actually my favorite game of the tournament for sure. So the backstory to this game is I played round 1 Friday evening, and I was running a Scholastic tournament Saturday morning. So I took Saturday morning off. Funny enough, I could have actually made the 2:30 game on Saturday, but just in case, the Scholastic tournament could have gone till 3, so I didn't want to take a chance. So I took a bye in the morning, and then I'm playing in the evening at 7:30, I think the time was. And I kind of tricked him in the opening. I knew he'd like to play the structure with e6, d5, and I was like, okay, let me take it away, or like play it in a move order I've played before, and I know he hasn't. And he kind of chose the wrong approach. And already here, I think this position is pretty tough for black. I think like +1 for by the computer. Also hard to play, and white's position just naturally plays itself. So this is kind of a French structure. I mean, if you can imagine these pawns here, you'd get this French. And this pawn not being here is going to be a problem, because now f4, f5 is going to be stronger. And if I ever get f6 in, this falls apart if he castles kingside. If I get e6 in, the light squares can fall apart. So here I'm just going to play very naturally. I'm just going to go f4, bishop f5. Now, I can't stress this enough. In the opening, and I see beginners do this, I see intermediate people do this, try to castle fast. Like, people think they're being fancy, and then they're going to catch their opponent, and by not castling, they're going to checkmate him. Sometimes, and a lot of times, it's the exact opposite. The sooner you castle, the sooner you can kind of tee off on your opponent. Your king is safe. Generally, your pieces are more developed because you've already castled, and then you can start kind of putting some power on the punches. So bishop f5, like what I'm thinking here is let me just castle fast, and then I can strike. So this, queen d7, castle, he takes, and then knight b4 is kind of the first, I think, mistake, first kind of big mistake that he makes. So the problem with this position for black is he's behind in development. You can see he wasted time moving the knight from here to here. So that's 2 moves. Or it's actually 3 moves with the knight. Meanwhile, I developed and I castled. So I'm up time. And after knight b4, he's spending more time to attack me. If I'm already up on time and he's spending time, then that is kind of a cue that you want to strike. Because, as you can do the math, that you are up a lot of time. So I just go queen b1. Queen d1 was possible too. My idea was I wanted to hold this f5 square. I knew f5 was going to be a very important push, and as you'll see, it kind of sealed the deal. So queen b1, c5. So even here, like if you're behind in development, then opening up the position is generally not the right idea. Like, you need to catch up. You need to castle, develop, and you need to consolidate. But if you attack and you're behind on time and your form, it's almost like your form is bad if you're a puncher. Like, you're gassed. If you try to attack and you're gassed, you're going to leave yourself open to some really nasty counters. So here, I don't even take on c5, because one, I'm going to help him develop his bishop. Why would I do that? And his king isn't that close to castling. So now I really am thinking I want to strike. For example, if he took here, I would just blow open the position. Take on f7, knight e5 check, knight g5 check. It's getting really messy for him. So already here, it's very dangerous. And then at this point, I think it's almost over. So bishop g5. And my intuition in this position for black is you need to give back some material. You're behind time, and you're behind development. The only way to kind of make up for time and development is basically by sacrificing material for development. If you give back the rook, you're going to get 2 moves. Maybe this position isn't so bad. Also, a lot of times when you give back material, you're taking away the initiative from your opponent, and that is a psychological thing. Like, when we're attacking, we want to finish you off. That is the best case scenario for us. If you can drag the game a little longer, even if it's worse or like slightly worse, maybe even almost significantly worse, if you can just keep dragging the game along, you're going to see your opponent kind of take their foot off the gas. And that's going to give you small opportunities to come back into the game. So here, I think he really needs to go with like c takes d4 or rook e8. No, not rook e8. So here, and this is still really bad because I'm getting everything with tempo, but at least this position looks a little more complex. Another idea would have been f6, take, and then trying to counter back over here. Because at least, like, if let's say for example I take here, pieces are coming in with tempo. He's gaining time. He's attacking the knight, and he would take with check. So I have to adjust this, which means I don't have time to put into my attack. So I think that would have been the direction to go. Instead he went rook e8, and then it kind of just blows up after e6. So e6, and he resigned here. If you take, I'm going to get knight e5 in. If queen c7, I get knight b5 in. He's going all the way back. His pieces are just completely a mess. F takes, I like the idea because I can go queen f5. I can go rook c1. I can take here. There's just a lot of entries into his castle. So the big, I think, lesson to take away from Black's play is if you get confused out of the opening, if you're behind in development and time, consolidate. Don't try to counter when you are being attacked, when you're on the back foot. That's how you're going to get in trouble. But overall, I mean, pretty happy. So now I'm two. So I have one win, I have one bye, and I have a win. And so far, pretty minimal effort. So we're going to take this as all moral victories up until this point. All right, so this is my round 4 game against Ethan Sheehan. Very solid player, very ambitious kid in Georgia, trying to get good at chess. I kind of knew he was scared of me because he offered me a bunch of draws up until this point, and this is like move 10. So my idea in these positions or against these people, especially as Black, is just get a position, develop all your pieces, and then eventually, if they give you an opening, go for it. If not, just keep kind of like adding pressure. It's like I always like to compare it to Barcelona football back when they would make like a million passes, like tiki-taka. That's how I kind of imagine playing chess. So we have this position. He's made some waste moves like f3. I think kind of what it looks like, he's undecided. He's trying to stay flexible. And there's pros and cons. Like I don't exactly know where to attack his king at this point. But if he gets caught in the middle, he could be in trouble. So he just goes queen c2. And this felt like the right time to strike. I knew somewhere around here I needed to strike because I've gotten pretty much all my pieces out. Yeah, I can move the queen and the rook, but to efficiently kind of move those, I needed to have some kind of opening. So I went for c5 here, and then after rook d1, I think I made a mistake and went rook c8. Because this allows him to basically force me to take, and then I'm going to get this structure. And it's not like the structure is like terrible or anything. This d6 pawn is weak, c4 is kind of my target. At some point I can go d5, and I'm never really worried about an isolated pawn there because I have all these pieces active and ready to get its back. But the better kind of idea is instead of taking on d4, going d5. So here, now I really wanted to just bust open the center, and this already would have been a slight improvement just because, like I was saying before, I'm fully developed. I want to open up this position even though he has the bishop pair. So this is when chess gets the hardest, when he has the bishop pair. So I don't want to open the position, but I have development and I have activity. So do I open the position? Long term, it can be beneficial for him, but short term, if I can kind of find the right combination, it's going to be beneficial for me. And these are the things as a chess player that you have to factor into your decision making. So here, I guess that what I was kind of worried about was I was gonna get stuck with these weaknesses, and then the bishops would get going. But for example, here like e3 is just too much of a problem for him. And the other big problem is he's not very close to castling, so it's gonna take him like 2-3 moves. And if you've seen some games, like like 2-3 moves, a lot can happen. It's a lot of time. So here at knight c3, and then was I really gonna go d4? I don't know. So computer kind of wants to go ballistic with it because now is the time to strike. The king is in the middle. But am I willing to kind of go this much or invest this much into an attack? I don't quite know. So that's why I kind of took it more slow. But looking back, I think that was the wrong approach. So d5, take. And I had some idea of like, if I can open this up, he's going to be in trouble. And the two kind of ideas I was looking at was knight c5, knight e6, or knight e5, knight c6. I eventually went with knight c5, knight e6 because I thought I don't want the knight on c6 because then it blocks the c file. And this rook is kind of perfectly placed, usefully placed too. So why would I block that? So I go knight c5, bishop b5, and I didn't want to go rook e5. I figured if I went rook e5 or anything else, I pretty much had done all this for nothing. I have the weakness. He has the bishop pair. Yeah, e3 is kind of weak. And this position, like, you can draw it because there's a good chance everything liquidates. But even then, I was afraid I would be on the worst side of it because he's got these two bishops. And I have the isolated pawn. So here I was kind of really trying to blow something up. So knight e6, and I had two intentions with this move. Either I was going to just take back here or take here. And when I was calculating, I initially thought this position was, I think, playable for black. But at this point, king d2 or even like bishop e3, king f2, I wasn't so convinced that I had enough here. Like, it's opposite color bishops, and if I can get this knight to c4, then okay, maybe I have something. But otherwise, I'm just down a pawn. So why am I going to take a worse position for no reason? And the reason why after queen takes e8, he can't try to save this, because after d4, he cannot take back. If he takes back, I take with check, and he's going to drop the queen. So then at this point, he would have to like castle. I would take here. I'd have two pieces for a rook, and then I would be more than happy in this position, because now he has all the weaknesses. I have a lot of useful squares to use for these knights, so I'd have no problem. But there was the other variation where he could just castle and give back the exchange. And I know this guy wants to draw with me. I took a bye, so I'm almost kind of half a point down in the overall tournament standings. So I have to decide in this position, do I want to be down a pawn but trying too hard to attack, or just keep it normal and just try to see if something can happen. And I think that's a big difference from when I was playing maybe a year, 2 years ago to what I'm playing now. Like, I have been okay with getting equal positions and just playing. And equal is almost always better than worse, depending on the type of worse and the complications. But just worse is never worth going into. It's like, why am I taking this? Let me just play chess. Worst case, it's a draw. But we're going to still have some opportunities, some moments here and there. And I can try to make something happen. So, okay, I just kind of start moving my pieces. Just trying to improve these pieces. I knew at some point rook e1's going to come. So I need to put this queen here. I also don't want to let his queen come to f5, because then it becomes a thorn in my side. It controls a lot of squares. I can't really move it out of there. If g6, this square is always soft. So I can't give up space. So here, space is very important. And here, like now, this bishop obviously here, doing nothing. There's a tall guy standing in front of him. But bishop a6, still doing nothing, but at least some of these squares could become important. Alright, so here, and then here, this is I think the first of like the good moves that I made. So rook c6, obviously nothing special, nothing crazy. The idea though is at some point I can try to swing to g6 and start some kind of idea of an attack or a threat. So now he goes rook e5, bishop c4, and this is when I get this idea to go a6, b5, a5, b4. So actually much more efficient. Let me do that again. b5, a5, b4. If I can get that, then this pawn can get dangerous because it's just very close to promotion. I dislodge his knight, and then I have some idea of invading on the c-file. So this is where I start getting some kind of idea that okay, maybe I can make something happen. And then I see this variation. So he goes queen e3. So his threat is rook e7 to try to win this pawn. So I can just go a5. But I was worried after a5, maybe he goes a4, shuts this down forever. Actually, bishop h4 is annoying too. So I give him a chance to make a mistake. I go b5. And I know this guy loves pawns. He's a big, big fan of taking pawns. And he goes boom, I go here, and I go here. And the logic behind this is it's opposite color bishops. So even if I'm down a pawn, I still have a very good chance of drawing. Like I'm not going to go too much in the hole. Like if you invest a piece, and you only have a piece for a pawn or even a piece for two pawns, you can kind of lose without a fight. So that's a very important kind of decision to make. And here, worst case, I still have good drawing chances. Now also, once I go rook e6 and he goes queen d2, my pieces are coming in. He has to be careful. With proper play, I think he can definitely hold. I was no way thinking here that if I did everything right, I would just win this and he'd just get checkmated. But I knew I would make some problems for him, and then if he made a mistake, he made a mistake. So knight h5, I'm just trying to bring more pieces to this king. Make your opponent scared. Good things will happen. Now here, this is where, and after I look at the computer, it makes a lot of sense, g5. And I never have to worry about this because I take on f3 and there's always this mate on f1 threat. And then everything kind of collapses here too. So I don't have to worry about that. And the idea is to go g4 and really open them up. Now, why did I go that crazy? I don't know. Rook g6 may be a little bit too unambitious. I don't know, because it's kind of ambitious, but it doesn't do enough. So king f2. And now is when I started feeling like I could get something. So here there's already this cool variation. If king e1, knight g4, he can't take because of this mate. And if he doesn't take, I always have the threat of take and then rook e6 winning the queen. So here he would be, I think, in a lot of trouble. But at some point I realized he could just go bishop f4, and then I have nothing. So this is going to happen sometimes when you're attacking. You're going to get somewhere you didn't think you were going to go. And then my idea here is I would admit defeat, go knight h5, bishop e3, and try to figure something out. Worst case, this might be an okay place to take a draw. I think I can still kind of finesse and play a little bit, but this would have been like one of the next checkpoints in the game of do I play for the win, or do I take the draw? But it didn't come to that. So he played rook e7, and now you kind of just have to do some geometry. So the lines here are, you have this idea, you have this idea, you have this idea, and you have queen here to attack this pawn, and go queen h4 check. So to win here, all you kind of have to do is just go through all the different iterations of all these ideas, and then you will come to kind of like, if it's there, you'll find it. If sometimes it's not there and you have to let it go. But a lot of times, look, once there's enough kind of pieces of a puzzle, you can put it all together. So if knight g4 check, he's just going to slide over. And this, I just trade everything. He's fine. I lost one of my attackers. He's super happy. So now I have to try something like queen h5. So queen h5, I want to attack this pawn. But if he goes here, now this check, he defends with tempo, or king g1. And now if wherever I go, he's going to move here with check. So that's why this one doesn't work. So now you kind of just try all the combinations, and you come with, okay, now I can go knight e4 check. The reason I don't go knight g4 check is now he doesn't have to take. But if I go knight e4 check, he has to take, otherwise this queen is just going. So knight e4 check, knight takes, queen h4 check, boom, and then I'm here. And okay, this is kind of the next checkpoint. Like, I've had enough experience here to know that this is not an easy position to win. He has a very good grip on all the squares. There's no kind of immediate way into the position, and a piece and a pawn for a rook is holdable and sometimes even winnable. So knowing all these things, I'm still very, very kind of like, I need to put this guy out. I can't take it easy. I can't take my foot off the gas. So knight c5, and now b4. So the idea with b4 is I wanted to open up the position. He could not go queen takes, so there's mate back here. And after pawn takes, this bishop is never getting trapped. Like, another big idea, that after knight c5, b3 actually does trap the bishop. So this, like, if he takes, I lose a pawn, but I didn't really lose a pawn. He already had a passed pawn over here. It's just the same thing. Now I have some ideas of, okay, maybe I can try to swing the rook around, get my pieces here, my bishop's chilling. At some point, h5, h4 was definitely a big idea that I was looking at, and I would play this position. So he goes a4, I go b3, just kind of cementing it in. I don't want to just lose this pawn for nothing at the same time. If he gets connected past pawns, very, very different story. So b3, queen e1. And now, okay, I wasn't 100% about this endgame. The computer likes it a lot for black. I wasn't so convinced. I thought white is still doing okay. And, I mean, even like visions of me losing were possible. If this pawn started to get going, the bishop cements it in. So I was like, okay, his king is weak. Let me just keep problems for him. So queen d8, queen b4, and a very important idea for here is he wants to go queen b8. For example, let's say I go queen g5, which I really, really wanted to do. I thought he could go here, here, and like knight d7. And I did not see mate here, but apparently there is mate. Oh yeah, everything just goes. Wait, okay, I think he had queen f4. So queen g5, queen b8, king h7, and then there was also queen f4, which I wasn't happy about. Because once again, I didn't like the endgame. And I saw a lot of variations with him. Let's say, for example, I just go like, so like queen e7, queen, okay, let's queen f6, this maneuver is really annoying. Okay, once again, I have this take on d4. But if he gets knight f8, it's a draw. There's nothing I can kind of do to squeeze out of that. So I had to avoid that. So king h7 is just a nice prophylactic move. At some point, I don't want this to be check, and I want to keep all my ideas of freeing the queen. Now, this queen is in a very interesting position, because if it goes to attack, then the defense is open. Now I can try to go queen g5 or queen a5. If it stays here, it's not attacking, and then I have time to kind of go h5, h4. So he's kind of in a tight spot too, where he almost has to do something. And here, I think he had to go queen f4. And once again, I wasn't super sure about this. I figured, okay, I made some progress. His pieces are kind of stuck. I just tried to kind of worm my way in. And then he goes bishop f4. And here I was calculating a lot of things. I was really like unsure almost what to do here. I'm not going to say I hit panic mode, but time was getting a little bit low, and I wasn't really seeing anything concrete. And queen b6, once again, I didn't want to go in this endgame. And as you can see here, every other move, except for the winning move, loses or gives white equality. But his pieces are not by his king. He has moved away, migrated this side. His king is by himself. Now is the opportune time to strike. So rook takes g2, king takes g2, and then queen e1. Now this, in theory, should not work because it is well. So the formula for attacking is two attack. You have to have +2. If you have 3 attackers and they have 1 defender, you will win. And if this bishop was a slightly better placed, or his queen could come to the aid, then that's all he'd need. But right now, every single one of his pieces are not helping his king. In fact, his bishop is hurting the king because it gets in the way. And that is why these two pieces, the 2 attackers, have enough to take out white's king. So king h3, check. And I actually didn't even calculate after this point. Once I saw that I'm getting here check or this check, I was like, okay, I'm going to win. Or like, this is enough, let me just go for it. I was like, worst case, I'll win a piece back at least. I'll get every single one of his pawns. It's like 2-1-0. It's like in basketball. If you had 3 players versus 1, like you can do kind of whatever you want. So check here, and then a nice end, kind of a sweet finish to the end. F5 check, and no matter where he goes, if he goes here, g6 is mate, and if he goes here, bishop h3 is mate. I don't know which one's prettier. They both, in my opinion, were very pretty, and that is where the game ended. So this one was definitely a tough fight. I thought out of the opening slightly better, but then the transitions were not as clean, and he played well. Like, he was very solid, didn't make any mistakes, and then he made one mistake. He went chasing pawns. It wasn't the final mistake, but it led him on a dark road, or on a difficult journey that I don't think he could. He didn't survive. I mean, I think he could, but anyway, that's round 4, and now to the final round. All right, so this is my last game. I'm gonna tell you right off the bat, it's a very ugly game, not pretty at all, nothing like the other ones. The tournament situation is all I need is a draw to win the tournament. I'm playing this 2200. I have 3.5 out of 4. This guy is 3. There are there's one other 3. So if he wins, which is Carter actually, he would have tied. But I had a very close look at their game the whole time. I was sitting next to them. So I always kind of had in the back of my mind, worst case, just draw this, take the paycheck, get your money, and call it a good weekend. So we get this position, and the problem here is white or black really has no weaknesses. He's played very solid, and it's not that I have weaknesses. I'm keeping this dream of castling queenside alive. And you might be thinking like, hey, you're supposed to castle fast. Certain positions, you want to kind of keep him guessing on which way you're going, just so I can launch an attack over here. But the problem is he made no weakness. So if I castle queenside, the problem is this c file. Rook c8, knight b4. His attack comes very fast. So I can't commit to casting. I can't commit to casting queenside. But I still have to find something to do with my time. So I go a3, just making moves. And at this point, I'm pretty much thinking I'm going to castle kingside. But I'm like, how do I make something happen over here? How do I get some kind of advantage? Some kind of I don't know, some kind of target to attack. And the problem is I never really got one. So e5. So e5 I thought was a very interesting move. So I think he's doing the right thing. He's opening up the position. He's castled. I haven't castled yet. Once again, I am one move away from castling, so it's a very solvable problem. And here I just thought there was going to be some combination of g4, g5, b5, and knight takes d5 and knight takes e5. Some move order should be favorable for me, and I was waiting for him to do something. So e5 is also what I wanted. The problem is there's nothing really there for white. I'll even put the computer on. Like already here. Yeah, so I'm already slightly worse. And this is the problem. If your opponent plays solid and you try to play a little spicy, you can get in trouble. So I go g4, bishop g6, and then take. And then here I underestimated f takes. So this is positionally kind of unsound, but he gets a lot of initiative for it. He gets the open f file, the open e file, and what's kind of funny about these pawns is it actually makes it harder for me to attack. If he goes h takes, this at some point can be dangerous for him. If I open the h file, he has got to worry about a lot of checkmates. But this way, if I ever go h5, he just locks it up with g5. And then I don't really have some clear way to open up this h file. So I thought f takes was a very nice move. Now apparently I have this variation, take, knight takes, and I think there's this crazy move, knight takes d5 here, which looks super sus. But somehow I'm holding this all together and I'm up a pawn. Now the reason I'm very scared here and would probably not do this again even if I had the opportunity is my king is wide open. There's no home for him. If this pawn was here and I had castled, then boom, I'm up a pawn. Great. I could go c4, c5, control the position, no problem. The problem is I have a lot of weaknesses and I'm going to have to play perfect to kind of navigate this. So I didn't miss this move order. I was looking at ideas like that, but once I saw the position kind of opening up and me not having a home, I just was not thrilled to kind of go into that. So here I decided to castle queenside, still keep it kind of locked. So one thing you'll see, like the more closed the position, the more like the better player I think is going to win. Just because, or especially if you're down, try to keep the position closed because then it's more complicated. The second everything starts blowing up and opening up, you can get caught with tactics. So I castle queenside, e4, knight d2. Now I really wanted to go knight g5, but I was worried this knight's going to get stuck here because it has no squares to go, and if I go h4, this g4 pawn becomes weak, and now my pieces are kind of out of position as well. So I was like, okay, this is a very good point where I was like, okay, keep it simple, don't do too much. If you lose, that would be tragic. You'd have wasted almost the whole weekend. With these tournaments, it's only first and second. I might have still got a slice of second, but losing here would definitely be with white too. I mean, please, no, that's the worst thing that could happen. So this is very like damage control kind of time. So knight d7, and I was really thinking at some point I need to go c4, but I don't want to open up this king, and then this pawn is weak. His knights have these squares. It's very far from ideal. So knight b3, I'm just gonna try to control this attack. Eventually try to make something happen. h4, maybe scare him a little bit. Though I think h4 is actually bad. I should have just gone king b1 and just kept in consolidation mode because this position is very messy for white. But h4, rook c8, king b1, a5. Now I'm trying to lock it up, and I did think about this, but I was like, dude, I don't know. Yeah, this pawn chasing is gonna be really tough. Now knight c5 is apparently the move. The idea is open up this bishop, but dude, I don't know. Like this looks super not ideal for white. So when in doubt, just keep it simple, stupid. One of the wisest things I've ever heard, but changed my life. And after bishop f4, funny enough, after b5, I offered him a draw, but I don't think he heard. Because after bishop f4, he offered me a draw, and instantly I was like, dude, yeah, of course. This is a good example of how reputation can carry you sometimes in chess. That's why it's good to do good things, because people reward you later on when you have no idea. I'm -3 here. I'm definitely worse. He had a good position, but it's not to the level where black can do whatever he wants. It's still a complicated position. He's going to have to make some tough choices, and from his side, his reasoning, his logic, it's like, okay, I guarantee second place. He kind of knows I'm going to take the draw here because we both sense that I'm worse. So it's not completely unforgivable, but definitely in second place, you should probably try to go for the win here. You're not going to get opportunities like this so often, and you got to capitalize on them because it's something I learned in chess. You never know how much one game can affect your trajectory. One bad game and you could have a slide. 2 tournaments, 3 tournaments. That game, if you win it, you turn it around. And now you can turn that one game into 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 games of good chess. So damage control and timing. That's what I would say are definitely the big things from this tournament. I'll do the recap real quick. So yeah, that's the last game. Ended up getting first place, cash for 1,300, getting about 7-8 points. Overall, I would give this tournament like a B plus, maybe a B minus, or sorry, maybe an A minus. The only sus game was the last one. I guess I could have drawn Ethan, but overall the play was good. It was a very busy weekend. I was driving back and forth, doing this, doing that. It was kind of a gamble. I could have messed up both events, not made any money, lost a lot of money. But sometimes the gamble works off. You just got to play. Take your time. Take your time. Don't rush. Castle. Do all the basic stuff. You will be rewarded for it. If your opponent makes mistakes, you punish him. Let your opponent. It's a lot easier for your opponent to beat themselves than for you to have to go do something crazy. And a lot of times, it's that simple. So overall, pretty solid tournament. Definitely getting momentum. Gonna play a bunch in November. And then December, we'll see. December, I might take off, or I might try to hit Vegas. We'll see. All right, well, as always, hope you guys were entertained. I don't know if this game will entertain you, but definitely round 2, or I guess round 3 for me. And the tactic at the end in the Ethan game was sick. So I will see you guys later. Peace.